The funniest thing about this World Cup is that the complaint everyone had before it started was basically there are too many teams. And then before the group stage was even finished, the tournament had already broken the all time World Cup attendance record. That's not a small record either. The old one was from 1994, also in the United States, and people have been using that tournament for 30 years as the proof that America can fill gigantic stadiums for football. Well, 2026 just walked in, looked at that record, and broke it before the tournament even got properly serious. Which is annoying because I wanted to hate this format. 48 teams, 12 groups, 8 third place teams going through. A round of 32, which sounds less like a World Cup knockout stage and more like a spreadsheet gaining consciousness. And yet, somehow, the mess is working. Not perfectly, not cleanly. There are problems. Some of them are stupid. Some of them are very FIFA, but if you're being honest, this tournament has already answered one of the biggest questions people had. Would expansion make the World Cup feel cheaper? Uh, I don't think it has. I think it's made it weirder, and honestly, that might be better. The old World Cup format was easy to understand. 32 teams, 8 groups. Top 2 go through 16 team knockout stage. Clean, brutal, elegant. The new one is not that. The 2026 World Cup has 48 teams split into 12 groups of 4. The top 2 teams in each group advance, and then the 8 best third teams sneak into the round of 32. That last part is where people start losing patience. Because when third place teams advance, group stage games can get weird. A team can lose again, win once, and then spend 2 days refreshing other groups like they're waiting on a college acceptance letter. And yes, that is a little ridiculous. There are already Reddit threads tracking the current ranking of third place teams because people are trying to figure out who's alive, who's basically dead, and who needs some deranged combination of results involving Ghana, Austria, Croatia, Iran, Korea, and possibly divine intervention. One comment just said, "We're so fudged," which honestly is maybe the most accurate summary of the third place table format anyone has written. But that chaos is also doing something FIFA probably loves and fans secretly enjoy. It makes almost every match matter. Even ugly matches. Even matches between teams you weren't planning to watch. Suddenly, you're staring at goal differences, cards, conduct scores, and wondering if Uzbekistan can win 10-0. They probably can't. But the fact that someone is asking the question is the point. One of the loudest predictions before this tournament was that the stadiums were going to look weird, too expensive, too spread out, too American footballish, too many matches, too many seats, and then the crowds showed up anyway. A Reddit thread about the attendance record turned into one long victory lap from people saying in different ways, "Wait, weren't these stadiums supposed to be empty?" One person wrote, "Reddit and X told me the stadiums were going to be empty though." Another said, "And people were saying that it was going to be empty due to expensive ticket prices. It's the World Cup, dude. Of course people are going to pay up anyways." That doesn't mean that the ticket price complaints were fake. They weren't. A lot of fans were clearly annoyed by the cost, and I don't blame them. Football is supposed to be a sport you can fall in love with before you can afford anything, not a luxury product with a national anthem. But the narrow claim that high prices and giant stadiums would create dead atmospheres looks wrong. The stadiums are full, the fans' scenes are real. The sheer size of the US venues is giving FIFA exactly what FIFA wanted. Numbers so big they can be turned into press releases forever. I hate how predictable that is. I also can't pretend that it failed. The strongest case for a bigger World Cup was never more games. Nobody wakes up excited because FIFA added inventory. The real argument was access. More countries, more fans seeing their team on the biggest stage. More chances for a smaller football nation to have the kind of 2 week run people remember for the rest of their lives. And that's where this tournament has actually delivered. Cape Verde making the knockouts is the kind of story that makes expansion hard to dismiss. ESPN called out Cape Verde's success as something for every soccer fan to enjoy, and Reddit's World Cup page had people asking if Cape Verde was the biggest Cinderella story in football since Leicester won the Premier League. Is that comparison too much? Probably. Leicester winning a full league season is still one of the weirdest sports events of the modern era. But the emotional logic makes sense. A country that most casual fans would never have picked to survive the group stage is suddenly part of the real tournament, not the qualifying tournament, not the nice little participation story, the actual knockout bracket. And that matters. And it matters more than the complaint that some traditional powers have to spend a week calculating whether they're the eighth best third place team. Sorry, that's funny. If your football superpower needs a conduct score tiebreaker to survive, maybe the format isn't the only problem. Okay, I need to be fair. The format has problems. The biggest one is that the group stage can feel less ruthless. In a 32 team World Cup, finishing third meant you were out. Clean paint, pack your bags. Now, third place can mean wait around, check five other groups, compare goal difference, count yellow cards, and hope some other team collapses. That's dramatic, but it's also a little unsatisfying. And this is where we get to one of the funniest phrases in modern tournament football: team conduct score. At this World Cup, yellow and red cards can help decide tiebreakers. SB Nation laid out the scoring. A yellow card is -1, an indirect red from a second yellow is a -3. A straight red is -4, and a yellow plus straight red is -5. Imagine your country getting eliminated because a substitute assistant coach got too spicy with the fourth official. That's not football romance, that's HR paperwork with cleats. Now, to be clear, conduct score tiebreakers existed for a reason. You need some way to separate teams. If points, goal difference, goals scored, and head to head stuff don't solve it. But in this expanded format, there are more teams hovering around the same margins, so the weird administrative stuff feels more visible. And when the tournament makes fans care about whether their team is on the -5 or -6 in the card table, the format may have gone one layer too nerdy. I say that as someone who enjoys nerdy. This is nerdy in a bad blazer. The other complaint that keeps coming up is that this World Cup feels very commercial. Not just normal commercial, very commercial. On Reddit, fans are complaining about hydration breaks, advertising breaks, strange camera choices, celebrity cutaways, and the feeling that the broadcast sometimes wants you to experience the event as a brand activation instead of a football match. One person said the hydration breaks are rubbish. Another said the football with ref cams and random celebrities isn't great because they want to watch the game, not feel like they're in it. And that criticism holds, because football's rhythm is part of the sport. It is not supposed to stop every few minutes so everyone can remember which corporation bought the summer. Hydration breaks can be legitimate in extreme heat. Players' bodies are not props. If it's dangerously hot, stop the match and let them drink water. But fans aren't stupid. They can tell the difference between a necessary safety break and a convenient new slot for more ads. That's the tension of this World Cup. On the field, expansion has opened the door to more countries, more stories, more chaos. Around the field, the tournament sometimes feels like FIFA discovered a new continent of monetization and immediately started drilling. There's also a bigger cultural thing happening. For years, every World Cup in the United States comes with the same argument. Does America actually care about football? And I think 2026 has made that question feel outdated. Maybe the better question is, what kind of football culture does America create when it hosts? Because the answer isn't Europe, but with bigger parking lots. It's different. The stadiums are enormous, the cities are spread out, the broadcasts feel more produced. The prices are higher, the fan experience is more commercial. The upside is scale, but the downside is also scale. One Reddit commenter who lives in a host city said the logistical nightmare hadn't really materialized. Matches were well attended, tourists were happy, and watch parties added to the vibe. That's worth taking seriously. Because a lot of people expected chaos, empty seats, and sterile atmospheres. Instead, at least in some places, the tournament seems to be doing the thing World Cups are supposed to do: temporarily turn cities into places where everyone is wearing a shirt from somewhere else and yelling about a corner kick. That's good. It's also not the same as saying FIFA did this out of love for the sport. FIFA did this because bigger means more matches, more tickets, more broadcast value, more sponsors, more everything. The surprise is that the football has survived the business model so far. I started looking at this tournament expecting the format to be the villain. Too many teams, too many games, too much math, too much FIFA. And some of that is still true, but I don't think the 48 team World Cup is automatically worse. I think it's a different product. The old World Cup was cleaner, the new one is more chaotic. The old one punished weak starts brutally, the new one gives teams more ways to hang around. The old one made qualification feel more exclusive, the new one makes the tournament feel more global. And that trade off is uncomfortable because both sides have a point. If you love purity, this format is bloated. If you love stories, it gives you more of them. If you hate FIFA commercialization, this tournament gives you plenty to complain about. If you love seeing your smaller nations get a shot, it's harder to argue that they shouldn't be here once they start making the knockouts. That's the actual debate, not whether expansion is good or bad in some abstract way. The question is what you think the World Cup is supposed to be. Is it supposed to be the most elite football tournament or the biggest global football festival? Because 2026 is clearly choosing the second one. And weirdly, that may be the more honest version of what the World Cup has already become. So yeah, the 2026 World Cup is messy. The bracket looks like someone spilled coffee on a logistics meeting. The conduct score stuff is deeply silly. The commercial breaks make fans suspicious for good reason. But the tournament is not dead. It's not empty. It's not meaningless. It's packed, loud, confusing, occasionally stupid, and full of countries getting moments they might not have had under the old format. My honest take: the 48 team World Cup is worse as a clean competition, but better as a global event. And FIFA, being FIFA, will take the wrong lesson from that. They'll see the attendance numbers and the extra inventory and think the magic came from making everything bigger. It didn't. The magic came from Cape Verde fans crying, from third place chaos making people care about matches they didn't plan to watch, from host cities turning into temporary football neighborhoods, from the part FIFA can sell but can't actually manufacture. That's why the tournament is working, not because the format is elegant, but because football is strong enough to survive it. Thank you.